Good day to you all. My name is Isaac. I'm a member of the West Coast chapter up in Finland. And this is how today's reading goes. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot, will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, God does not change. That, I think, is the very first thing you can get from this passage. He's the same. He will fulfill his promise to us yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Perhaps not always as we want him, though. That's worth remembering. The other thing that kind of superficially comes to mind is that God seems to be a fairly harsh, a very righteous and unyielding God. Which I think is true, in a sense, but the question here is, what does this law that we cannot change say? What are the dots that we cannot remove? What first comes to mind when we talk about the Bible and Jesus' teachings and the rules and the laws are the Ten Commandments. I think most of us can fairly easily agree that these make sense. Don't kill people. There's one God, the basic stuff. They're easily agreed upon. We're not necessarily that good at actually doing what they say. So whilst they are simple and quite clear, they are not an easy thing to uphold for any of us. On the other hand, there are many other rules in the Bible, and if we are honest, and I think we should be, there are a lot of rules and commandments, especially from the Old Testament, that we just consider not really current. We don't really uphold them. We don't need them anymore. Well, we shouldn't need them. For example, rules and laws regarding slaves. We shouldn't have slaves, but the laws are still there in the Bible. So it's worth mentioning that the notion that we are following the Bible to the letter isn't really possible, and none of us do that to the extreme. Nobody does that. So just keep that in mind. None of us are really strict at the end of the day when it comes to how we read and understand and interpret the Bible. So show each other mercy on that point. Now, while that as a notion might sound somewhat confusing and somewhat contradictory, I'd like to read another passage of the scripture to you all. And in this passage, there's a lawyer, actually, that asks Jesus what the greatest commandment is. And it goes like this. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And he said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. Consider us, though, here that Jesus is not only telling them what commandment is the most important, what the great commandment is. He is even saying that on these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. Love God, love your neighbor. That's simple. The Bible is sometimes described in churches and similar surroundings as kind of a rule book for life or a map for life. And whilst I kind of see the point in that, I struggle a bit with both, to be honest. Because to me, I think that the Bible is mostly about relationship, actually. Our relationship to God and our relationship to each other. And the one thing you can always be sure of when it comes to relationships is that they will be messy. They always are. If you look at the Bible, people fail. They try to run from God. They try to hide from Him. They run away from responsibility. They fight God in different ways. But despite the fact that many of these stories kind of depict people that are fighting God, I find comfort in them. Because as long as we, at the end of the day, carry love in our hearts, there's always this possibility of reconciliation with each other and with God. God always has love for us. That is a constant. We don't have to question that or doubt that. But the question is whether we actually trust that love enough. But I'd suggest that you shouldn't read the Bible as a rule book. Rules are great and needed. But the thing with rules are that when you add people, the rules never quite fit. From my years in leadership in different circumstances, there's one thing I've learned. And that is that we should never underestimate people's creativity in messing things up in ways that the rule makers or lawmakers never ever even considered possible. Which basically just saying that rules never quite fit. They never quite fit reality. So, what to do? I'd say, well, follow God's commands. The most important ones, which upon all the law and all the prophets stands, is the two great ones. Love God, love your neighbor. When you mess up, your first thought should be, I need to talk to God, not to run from God. But we often try to run. It's very human. But we should run to Him, not from Him, when we mess up. Because He loves us. That's what He does. That is what the Bible tries to tell us over and over again. When it comes to other people's mistakes, I make plenty enough on my own. So personally, I don't really have time to pick other splinters. The logs in my own eyes weighs too heavily on me. To finish this off, occasionally it happens you stumble on actually good things on social media. And I stumbled upon a meme that goes something like this. God bless, and you all have a good day.